Toronto Raptors, the Toronto Raptors lose their first game of summer league. It was not exactly what you wanted to see, but the Toronto Raptors do lose their first game of summer league to the Utah Jazz. Oh, we got to talk about this. A lot of missed shots, a lot of false expectations, perhaps. Um, don't pay too much attention to losing and winning in summer league. Okay, we got to talk about a lot of things. We got to talk about the Gary Trent Jr. thing. We got to talk about who stood out today. We have had a couple of days without lives where, a lot of stuff has happened in Raptors land, and I think a lot of overreaction. So we're going to talk about Gradey Dick, even though Gradey Dick did not play, and just take an overview of the past 3 games of Summer League and sort of what we've learned. All right. Penny Hardaway saying the Chomche train. Yeah, well, you see it. I'm a Ulrich super fan. That's what's going on, and he definitely showed up today. There's a lot that sticks out when you watch Summer League, and there's a lot that maybe people get a little too caught up in. Makes and misses is something that people get too caught up in. Take for instance, Alex Sargon, what, 0 for 15, right? And now everyone's like, oh my God, he's a bust, right? Now, if you're listening to me for the last 2 months, you already think he's a bust, but I don't think 0 for 15 is that disastrous, nor do I think what's happening with Bronny James is an indictment on how the rest of his career is going to completely play out. Obviously, there's certain things that you would like to see in summer league. You would like to see guys dialing up the energy. You would like to see guys being in the right positions. You want to see consistency in shot form. And you want to see some growth, right? It's been a while since we've seen some of these guys like Ochai Agbaji. You want to see what they've added. Is there a new wrinkle in their game? Have they added a pull up? Does the handle look a little bit tighter? So we're going to talk about a lot, but overall, the Raptors, despite a valiant effort at the end, come up short 86-76. And yeah, this wasn't particularly close. It was close in the beginning. The Raptors came out, they blitzed hard. And from that point on, it was pretty much all Jazz. And it was a lot of Taylor Hendricks, a lot of Taylor Hendricks, a lot of Kyle Filipowski. And yeah, there's a lot to talk about. Mohammed Lay saying, how did the Dinos do today? I mean, I think right? That's almost weird. Okay. Do you believe Jaylen Brown supposedly dissed Bronny with what he supposedly said? Sorry, I read supposedly twice. Yeah. Okay. I mean, he said he's not an NBA player, and honestly, Jaylen Brown is an NBA player, so yeah, I mean, I agree with him. Bronny James is not an NBA player. There was a discussion that came up yesterday. There's 2 discussions that came up in on the panel yesterday. I was on the Players' Choice panel yesterday, and there's 2 discussions, and I want to expand on those 2 discussions. I'm going solo here. Obviously, anyone in the community who wants to call in, you can call in, and we don't have to go solo. We can definitely have a conversation about this. But I do think that those are 2 extremely important topics that we talked about. Number 1 was, what do you do when you can't shoot? So basically, the conversation came up about PJ Washington. Should he cut? Should he not cut? And I think that opens up a whole can of worms in terms of how we need to rethink the way we talk about basketball, right? Because this is old school thinking. It does not apply to the modern game. If you watch 90s basketball, you're watching a completely different sport. So the wisdom of your high school coach from 1993 does not apply to the NBA today. And I want to explain why. So that's the first thing. The second thing we talked about was just Bronny James in general, right? Now, I have a kind of contradictory opinion on Bronny James, just like I have a contradictory opinion on guys like Ochai Agbaji, where I am rooting for them, but I don't think they're very good. And so the question then becomes, well, how good do you think they are relative to the world, right? The world is what, 7 billion, 8 billion, 8 plus billion people. A lot of them play basketball. It's one of the fastest growing sports in the world. And so the question then becomes, where does Bronny James rank in the world as a basketball player, right? It's 450 jobs in the NBA. You add in the G League, you can pepper in about 600. You can say some of it is luck, some of it is age, some of it is political, right? Jonte Porter is a really good player. He's going to be in prison next year, most likely. So you take certain guys out of it. And if I could just take a world draft, EuroLeague, G League, all the different, Adriatic League, whatever, all the leagues in the world, China, whatever, take every single player Is Bronny James one of the 450 best players? I don't think so. I mean, I don't not think so. I know he's not one of the top 450 best players. And I made a case yesterday. I don't think he's one of the top 1,000 players. You consider how many guys in next year's draft are better than him right now. You consider how many guys in 2026 draft class are better than him right now. Yeah, it gets really daunting really fast. Okay. And I think that that conversation can be applied also to Ochai Agbaji because there are guys who came in this year's draft class that are better than him right now. And that is a really scary proposition for a guy who is going into his third summer league. And it's just something that we need to open up. So, first, a little overview on what happened in the game, right? Jevon Freeman-Liberty. A lot of people are hating on Jevon right now, saying he's selfish. I don't think he's selfish. I think this is his role. I'm not really sure with his guarantee dates and the fact that most of his contract is not guaranteed right now if he's going to make the roster because the Raptors have a bit of a roster crunch. They have 16 guys on their roster. That's not including two-way guys, Exhibit 10 guys, and Jevon is just the math says Jevon is going to get cut. And I think Jevon knows that. He's pretty much auditioning for another team at this point. I'm pretty sure he knows that. It was not a pretty game. From the Raptors side, 37.7% from the field, 23% from the line. Lord, where have I seen that? I don't know. The Toronto Raptors last year, I guess. It was just an ugly game overall. The Raptors lose every single department. Thank God they didn't turn the ball over a lot because this could have been even worse. They did fight. They did fight. And I think that even some of the guys that you can complain about offensively, like Jamal Shead to some extent, who went 0 for 3 from 3 and 3 for 9 from the line, sorry, from the field. Even guys like that, guys like, for instance, DJ Carton, who went 1 for 4 and had a lot of trouble finishing around the paint. Even guys like, for instance, Jacoby Walter, who went 2 for 10, you cannot really, really argue with their defensive effort. I think for the most part, it was pretty good. Okay. Ochai, there was a lot of talk during the broadcast that they're talking to him about being more vocal on defense. Well, I don't think he's good enough defensively to be an all defense type of player. And so if you're not good enough to be that level of defender, regardless of what your physical tools are, how big or athletic and as big as you think you are, he's got to do more. He's got to be a threat to score. He cannot be passing up. He cannot be this passive. In a lot of ways, Ochai Agbaji has a lot in common right now with Bronny James in that he's making very little impact with the basketball. It's not just about going out and scoring 40 points. It is legitimately just being someone who makes the defense think. That's being aggressive, getting 2 feet in the paint, being a playmaker for your teammates, getting active, setting screens. Ochai is just floating. And this is not a good indication for a guy who has a lot to prove. Now, him at college, him in Kansas, was a pretty damn good player. I really believe that he showed NBA potential, not star potential. Yeah, sure, fine. You can maybe argue picking a guy in the lottery who didn't have any star potential was a little bit of a weird thing, but his floor was so exceedingly high coming into the draft that you could almost not fault a team for saying, "Hey, let's actually take some swing on production on this rookie contract." The problem is he's making $6 million, and I'm not sure he's better than Jevon Freeman-Liberty right now, and that's really just being kind to Ochai. I'm hoping for Ochai. And again, this is where I say two things can be true. You can root for a guy and still accept that he is very limited. I think Ochai is very limited right now offensively. He doesn't seem to know how to dribble the basketball. He's never really been much of an exceptional passer. I think he's shown some flashes as a connective playmaker. He's not really a guy who's going to initiate, right? And his shot just has not been there. And so you can't have all those things go wrong for you and still be an NBA player. You just can't. Unless you are, I mean, consider Matisse Thybulle right now, right? Out of the rotation, off of Team Australia. He is significantly better defensively. And frankly, he's probably better offensively. So if the best case scenario for Ochai Agbaji right now is a poor man's Matisse Thybulle, he may not be in the NBA in a year from now. And that is just a wake up call that he is going to have to wake up to. And I'm not really sure what's going wrong with him right now, but it is significant and it is standing out because with Gradey Dick out, with Jonathan Mogbo out, the reps were there. The reps were there for you, man. You should have taken this game by the balls. And by the way, extra incentive, it's against your former team. So you know that Danny Ainge is watching. How about some pride? How about, hey, I want to prove that y'all gave up on me for nothing. I want to prove that I have some juice. I just didn't like his game. Yeah, I just don't like his game right now. And this is a very far way to fall. But, at Summer League, as a physically, athletically gifted prospect as he is, strength is not the issue. This is not the case. You know, uh, he has been playing basketball long enough. So it's not like with Gradey and with Jacoby Walter, where you can say, okay, when they get stronger, they're not going to be bumped off as much. It's not like with Jamal Shead, where you're like, okay, well, he's going to have to get a lot more skill to compensate for the lack of size. And it's not like Ulrich Chomche, where you could say, well, he hasn't been playing basketball for very long. There just is no excuse to play as poorly as he's played, and it's really just about passiveness. I would so prefer Ochai Agbaji to come out there and just empty the clip. Just get to the rim, attack, get to the line. I don't give a shit if you miss every free throw. He plays timid right now, cannot play timid in the NBA. You need to be dominating at this level, and the fact that you look like possibly the worst player on the court for your team at times is very disappointing. So, that if that is even half of what you gave up a first round pick to get last year, that is already looking like a bit of a flop for the Toronto Raptors. Okay. Penny Hardaway saying, Rob, that's not his game, though. He plays nice. That's his problem. What are we talking about? No, look, it doesn't matter what your game is, okay? Malachi Flynn's game is not what it is in the pro-am when he's dropping 70 points. I'm saying at this level, you've got to be a threat. Your team needed to win tonight, right? Today. You enter the game undefeated. You see Gradey's out. This is just competitive pride. I don't give a shit what your game is, right? When a Division 1 or a Division 2 player plays pickup with you, he looks like Shaq. That's not his game at Division 2, but that's his game playing pickup with you, right? Summer League should be cakework for Ochai Agbaji at this point. He's had a lot of NBA coaching. And you know what? Here's the problem. Again, we isolate for variables here, right? Darko Rajakovic, Jama Malalela, Will Hardy. That's a lot of really good coaches that have poured some serious time into Ochai Agbaji at this point. So it is just a matter of pride at this point. He's sticking out really bad. Okay. And I'm not saying that he can't still make it work. He's still young. He's still 24 years old, but time's a ticking. And with a flood of rookies coming in for your jobs next year and his contract expiring and him not having an extension right now, I will tell you point blank center. If he does not pick it up, Ochai Agbaji will be out of the league within a year. He will be on a two-way contract. He will be back in Summer League. I said it coming into Summer League. This is a put up or shut up time for Ochai Agbaji. He needs to take it personally. The fact that he's even a third-year player playing in Summer League is insulting. Look at the Jazz. They pulled Keontae George, right? He's a second-year player. He was not a lottery pick. He was a 15th overall pick. They pulled him. It's not common for a third-year player to be playing Summer League. It's even less common for a third-year player to be playing this poorly in Summer League. This has been a very disappointing time for Ochai Agbaji. To keep it a stack, to keep it real. Now, let's also keep it real. Jacoby Walter has not looked great, okay? But I am willing to give it some time. This is not Rob does victory laps time because Rob was disappointed at the draft that the Raptors picked Ochai Agbaji. Sorry, the Raptors picked Jacoby Walter. And now I'm going to say, oh, see, I told you, I told you, I told you. No, none of that at all. Okay. You have to look at players like Jacoby Walter and Gradey Dick and say, what do they do well? What is the setting in which they will shine? What are they struggling with right now? Now, let's take a quick look at the box score and then we'll talk more deeply about Gradey and Ochai. Who else stuck out? Well, Branden Carlsen, again, being the older player that he is, he did not have the greatest game tonight. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great. He was fine. You can make some positive assumptions saying he was +2 in a game in which you lost by 10, and that trend pretty much stuck through for most of the night. On the other hand, you could also say plus minus is absolutely bullshit because Ulrich Chomche was -18, and I think he did a lot of really great things out there, and I don't necessarily think he earned that. Big congrats to Jamison Battle, who ends up getting an Exhibit 10 deal with the Toronto Raptors. he follows up that show of faith with a 0-point game, and I think they really needed something from him. Again, with Gradey Dick out, you needed some offense, you needed some gravity from somewhere. I'm not really sure you got it from Jamison Battle, nor did you get it from Amari Moore, nor did you get it from DJ Carton. This was just a really tough game all around. And frankly, the fact that the vast majority of these lives have had 400 people, 350 people, and right now we're sitting at 154 watching a live right after the game should tell you how depressing this loss really was. However, I want to talk about how we should look at Summer League versus how people do look at Summer League. Briefly, let's just take a look at the Utah Jazz. 2 lottery picks, Cody Williams, Taylor Hendricks, right? Another guy who had lottery upside in Isaiah Collier. Another guy who was being talked about as a mid-first round pick, but who ended up slipping past the Raptors at the second in the second round, Kyle Filipowski, due to issues that shall remain nameless. All looked pretty okay. Isaiah Collier did not, but those 3 aforementioned looked perfectly fine to me. I think Cody Williams had a bit of a size advantage on Jacoby Walter, and it really showed in terms of length. Baxter Blackhawk saying Chomche -18 is unacceptable. I really hope you're kidding, and I suspect you are. If you're not, get help. Okay. In terms of just their bench, Kenny Lofton Jr. is a guy who was putting up like 40 points, 30 points on a regular in the G League. The fact that he went 1 for 8, and yes, a lot of the time he spent matched up with Ulrich Chomche, and believe me, that length bothered the shit out of him. I think that was important and something worth watching for. Walker Kessler does not play, which is, thank God for the Toronto Raptors. Walker Kessler does not play because, again, the Utah Jazz are an embarrassment of riches when it comes to their G League and their Summer League teams. I mean, there's just a lot of depth and talent. They are really, really taking the money ball approach to prospects, and they're firing multiple times in every draft. And I think that Danny Ainge is very smart for that because you really don't know. You really don't know which one of these players is going to pop, and you want multiple cracks at it. I know it sounds lazy, it sounds stupid, it sounds like stacking the whole board on roulette, but the truth is, you can't win if you don't draft a guy. You really can't. Okay. If you had 15 first round picks this year, I'm sure you'll find somebody. Okay. If you have 5, your chances go down a bit. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's pull this off and let's just talk more openly about how I think people look at Summer League versus how I think people should look at Summer League. First of all, a little bit of housekeeping. Please hit like on this video. Please hit subscribe. It takes so much time and so much effort to make these lives. No, I'm just kidding. It doesn't. But in fairness, it does help, and it costs you absolutely zilch. So if you could hit like, I would appreciate it. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we are going to have you covered for every single Raptor game this year. We're going to have you covered for Canada basketball. We can definitely talk about Gary Trent Jr. and Team USA against Serbia towards the end of this. Again, there's a link in the description for Colin if you have something to say about today's game, quick comments, suggestions, conversations, deeper analysis. Feel free to call in. This is as much my show as it is yours. And what else did I want to say? Oh, yeah, super chats and all the support from this community goes a long way. There's a link, of course, in the description for Amazon gift list and e-transfers if you feel inclined to help out that way. Okay, let's keep ourselves organized. What shall we talk about first? We should talk about Gary Trent. No, we're not on Gary Trent yet. We'll talk about Summer League because that's what I've been teasing at. Let's talk about it. Gradey Dick did not look good in the last game. Alex Starr looked horrible. Reed Shepherd has looked amazing. This is not a definitive chapter to say, okay, well, Grady's washed. Gradey was a terrible pick because he can't dominate in Summer League. Different guys are going to do different things. When you watch Gradey Dick play basketball, you have to understand what is the value of Gradey Dick. He's not a prospect with a lot of holes. He's a prospect with weaknesses, but he didn't have a lot of holes, right? You could say his paint finishing is not great. Pull-up jumper is not great. Handle is not great. Passing is not great. Shot making is not great. Defense is not great. Point of attack defense is not great. Strength is not great. All of those things are true, but none of them are holes. You understand? Like, he's not an elite passer, but he's not a non-passer. He's not an elite shooter right now. I mean, in theory, the theory of Gradey is that he's an elite shooter, but at the NBA level, we have not seen elite shooting. But he is a good shooter who is getting better. He's not an elite athlete, but he's not a non-athlete. He's not one of those guys who has clunky steps and doesn't know how to move around the basketball court. He moves very hitchless. He moves well. I've already talked before about how much I care about movement patterns when it comes to young players. Gradey Dick has very, very good movement patterns. What do I mean by movement patterns? Someone asked the other day, and I just missed the comment. I care about how much energy it takes you to move around the basketball court. There are certain people, if you want to go back and watch some Michael Jordan tape, Vince Carter, these are people who move very effortlessly. Their body is in sync, their body is coordinated, everything looks smooth. There's no shake. There's no hunky, there's no clunkiness to their movement. They don't look like they're exerting a lot of effort to run up and down the court. Everything is just smooth. This comes down to a combination of proportionality of your limbs. It comes down to flexibility. It comes down to hips. It comes down to strength. It comes down to proper muscle development. It comes down to proper fitness. There's a lot of things that it takes to be smooth on the basketball court, just like it takes a lot to be smooth on the dance floor or smooth as a ballerina, whatever. When you have hitchless movement, like a Michael Jordan, for instance, everything becomes easier because your manipulation, which is to add hitches to the hitchlessness, becomes far more possible. Ja'Kobe Walter moves very smooth. Ulrich Chomche moves very smooth. Jonathan Mogbo, for a big guy, moves very smooth. Jamal Shead, not quite, but good enough as a movement player. You like the movement of these guys. Branden Carlsen also has a pretty good movement pattern, in my opinion. You know it when you see it. When you see when you see a non-NBA player, like when you see Sasha Vezenkov move around, you'll see what I mean. Like there's a lot of guys in the EuroLeague that don't have elite movement patterns, and I fully believe that this is a big reason why they're held out. They have chop steppy. They don't have like necessarily the greatest balance and control over how they're moving. You consider a guy like Luka Doncic, he has phenomenal movement patterns, but he doesn't have the greatest vert, doesn't have the greatest burst, doesn't have the greatest speed. Nikola Jokic is a guy who just moves very gracefully around the basketball court. He has very light feet. He's not heavy footed, right? So movement matters a lot. What I'm looking for on a guy like Gradey is, are you getting your shots? Are you taking the ones you're supposed to take? What's your playmaking like? Yeah, sometimes the pass is going to get ripped off. Okay. Sometimes your handle isn't strong enough and someone's going to dig into it, but are you at least trying to do the right thing? Are you making the right reads or are you losing confidence? Are you second guessing yourself? Psychologically, this matters. When you don't have the basketball, are you setting screens? Yeah, maybe you get called for a moving screen because you haven't mastered the art of screen setting. Congratulations, you're 20 years old. You can work with that. Okay. You can work with certain things. Paint finishing, right? You go up into your defender. Are you clean on your point of release? Well, it might just be luck that you missed three. Or are you not clean? You're bumping into the guy and he's not going anywhere. Well, now that's a strength issue. Now we got to work with you in the gym. We got to work on your explosiveness because believe it or not, that can still be fixed at this age. You can still make an athlete much more explosive at the age of 20 easily. By 22, if Gradey puts in the work, he can be a lot more explosive, a lot stronger. He can develop his upper body. He doesn't have to look like Joey Graham. He could just get stronger. He can get his base can get stronger. There's so many things. He can get the technique down a little bit better. He can learn counters. He can learn to manipulate the defense a little bit, right? He can add more of a threat to the shot so that his finishes at the paint are a little bit more open. He can become a better playmaker. And so it won't be as easy to guard him. These are all important things, but none of them can happen if he doesn't take the shot and if he doesn't possess the instincts, right? When I'm looking at players like Gradey and Ja'Kobe Walter, I'm seeing how complex their eventual upside is, which is to say how many different things they could potentially become, how many different things they can do. They're very dynamic players. Very dynamic players. Ja'Kobe, I'm thinking the handle needs a lot of work. Okay, we saw it today as well, right? And I know that he has likened his game to Kawhi Leonard, but I would really suggest that Ja'Kobe watch a lot of DeMar DeRozan tape because DeMar DeRozan came in with a not so great handle as well. He worked on it. His scoring package was not elite. He didn't come in with anything close to the shot that Jacoby has. So if Jacoby can be a very, 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 very poor man's DeMar DeRozan, Kawhi Leonard hybrid with above average defense, like he has the shooting and the defense that Debo didn't have. But physically, he has some of the limitations that DeMar has, right? And the handle, right? We need to get that handle up. But that will come. That will come with time. There are a lot of players who become better ball handlers as they grew. Paul Pierce, Vince Carter, DeMar DeRozan. There's a lot of examples. Tracy McGrady, right? These guys became better ball handlers, right? Tony is saying, do you want a stronger Gradey or a bigger Gradey? I'll take both for 200, Alex. Okay. So when it comes to what Gradey does in terms of making everything complicated, I think we need to talk about PJ Washington and the conversation we had on Player's Choice. So the conversation was framed as such. There was talk about who was more impressive during the postseason, Naz Reid or PJ Washington. And I picked Naz Reid. Well, I didn't really pick him. I just started shitting on PJ Washington. And I felt that PJ Washington's lack of playmaking makes him very schemable because he's not a great shooter. He used to be a great shooter. First year in Charlotte, he was a really good shooter, and his shooting percentages have dipped every year. And it felt like the Boston Celtics were just willing to live with above the break threes for PJ Washington all game. And so Ox, Big Ox Media, shout outs to Ox, love Ox. Ox is a cool dude, but he mentioned he's like PJ needs to cut into space. He needs to cut across. He needs to cut through the paint. And I was like, no, he doesn't. And so the question then becomes, why do I feel that PJ Washington cutting through the paint in the Dallas Mavericks offense is not a good idea? And it brings me back to Gradey Dick. So when you cut into space, right, you are taking something away from somebody else in order to give something to somebody else. There should be a positive equation on the other end, right? So when a Klay Thompson cuts into space, what he can potentially do is he can come off a few picks, force some sort of miscommunication, which can result in an opening. The reason is people really care when Klay Thompson moves. Even at this stage of his career, his reputation as a shooter, his acumen, all the nostalgia of, oh my God, that's one of the Splash Brothers, still creates a lot of gravity, which forces defensive communication when he starts moving without the basketball. So when Klay Thompson comes off of two screens, chances are the defense isn't just like, that's just Klay, forget about it, doesn't matter, and they go under everything. No, they're trying to fight over screens, which can sometimes result in offensive fouls. It can also result in an open shot for Klay. It can also result in a miscommunication, which could result in an open cutter at the rim. That's why you move. That's why you move. You don't move just for yourself. You don't move just for your scoring opportunity. So then the question becomes, well, why can't PJ Washington do that, Rob? PJ Washington's not that bad. PJ Washington looked like Klay Thompson against the Thunder. Well, here's the equation with why you shouldn't cut into space. My thought process is you should try to stay away from places on the basketball court where you're not a threat. And you should try to move towards places where you are a threat, because the more of a threat you are, the more red you are in terms of how the defense responds to you. Jakob Poeltl standing at 35 feet is a really good excuse for the defender to ignore him because he can't score from there, right? But when Jakob Poeltl is constantly darting around the court, setting screens, and he's constantly cutting into space, well, that only works for one of two reasons. Well, both reasons. Number one, Jakob Poeltl is a really good paint finisher. He can finish around the paint. This is not a Fred VanVleet situation where, okay, we'll just ignore him underneath the basket and send a contest because he's so poor underneath there and he's so undersized. Jakob Poeltl is a 7-foot man who has shown over the years that he's a very good paint finisher. The second thing is he's a really good playmaker, which means that from that position, it can also open a completely new angle that was not available prior to that pass. To diagram something, to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Scotty Barnes coming up the court, right? Jakob Poeltl sets a screen on the left side. Scotty rejects the screen. Okay. Jakob rescreens for somebody else. Say, I was going to say Gary Trent, but he's not on the team anymore. A Gradey Dick. Now, Jakob has set 2 screens, which now enable him to move to the basket. Potentially, if the defense has miscommunicated this amongst themselves, he is now being guarded by a small, which creates an immediate problem for the defense because Jakob Poeltl is now being guarded by a small, and now the small has to peel switch off of him without leaving him wide open to recover to the corner. And in this miscommunication or cross match here, Jakob Poeltl has forced the defense to communicate a miscommunication. At which point, Jakob Poeltl could get the ball from Scotty Barnes, or maybe he could set another screen, which can create more confusion. And now Jakob Poeltl has effectively done a lot of good stuff. But largely, this is happening because Jakob Poeltl is a threat to score where he's standing and where he's screening. And because he's moving fast enough and he's smart enough to move into places. All of this goes away if after setting the screen on Scotty, he just stands there at the top of the key because now his defender can just sag into the paint. He can just drop. And now it's more complicated for Scotty to drive because the paint is congested. It's more complicated for anybody else to cut through the paint because the paint is congested. And so you have this very efficient part of the basketball court that is being currently occupied by a defender who does not have to move because Jakob Poeltl can't shoot. That's how Jakob Poeltl offsets some of his lack of shooting gravity. Now, to get back to Gradey, what Gradey has in his advantage right now is he's getting better at finishing in the paint. Like you've seen multiple times where he's done an up and under, he's trying to draw contact. He needs to get better at finishing around the rim, period. But he's about 6'7", 6'8" with plus wingspan. I'm betting he's going to get there. Even if he doesn't get all the way and he doesn't become some great paint attacker like James Harden, that's okay. That's not a problem because he's got the pull-up threat, right? So Grady's got the in-between game. It's going to come. He's got the deep ball. It's going to come. But what makes him really interesting is that he's big and he can pass. Being big and making that pass means your sight line is going to be a lot better. And at some point in theory, Grady's going to have mismatches that he can hunt. There's certain players that never have mismatches. Ochai Agbaji is the guy who has no mismatches. There's not one player in the league where Ochai Agbaji has him on him. I'm like, oh my God, that's a big on Ochai Agbaji. We're fucked. Nope. No, not at all. Because he doesn't have the handle and he doesn't have the shot. And the big can just back off of him. So it's not a threat. You're not a threat, right? And it's not like, oh my God, that's Ochai Agbaji on a 6'1" point guard because he's a 6'4" shooting guard who can't score in the post. So it doesn't really, if Ochai Agbaji is not streaking in transition, Ochai Agbaji is not a threat. So Ochai Agbaji impacts your spacing in so many negative ways. It's almost like he's worse for your spacing than Jakob by a long shot. Take someone like Kelly Olynyk on the other side, the guy he came over from Utah with, and that's a completely different equation because Kelly's a threat from everywhere. Kelly can score in the paint. Kelly's a great passer. Kelly's a good shooter above the break. Kelly can screen. Kelly is a decent ball handler. So if he catches it in transition, it's a threat, right? So everything comes down to, are you a threat or are you not, right? Gradey Dick has the potential, and Ja'Kobe Walter has the potential to be a threat from multiple places on the court. In fact, they have the possibility long down the line, because Jacoby's 19 and Grady's 20. Chill, relax. Okay. They have the possibility to be threats, like very dynamic threats, like to the point where Jacoby could have many mismatches. Like if he can get strong and he's long enough, he's got that 6'10" wingspan, he could be a really big problem for a smaller guard cross match on the post. He's very athletic, so he can be a problem in transition. If a big is the first guy coming back, that's going to be foul. Right? He's already shown some foul drawing, foul baiting tendencies, which is good. He could also be a massive threat as a shooter. He could potentially add the deep ball. And then, of course, there's a propensity for the mid-range game, which I think will come for him and will be his bread and butter at some point. All of these things mean that Ochai Agbaji is not like Ja'Kobe Walter and Gradey Dick in that they have some considerable upside to be very, very well-rounded, dynamic, dangerous types of offensive players, and yet they also have the upside to be participants defensively. I don't think Ja'Kobe Walter is a better defender right now than Ochai Agbaji. It doesn't matter though, because he can hold water. And Gradey is nowhere near the defender that Ochai is, especially the point of attack, but he can hold water because he can rebound and he's big enough that he can participate. He can contest at the rim. He can just bother shots. Because in the end, it doesn't matter if you're winning and losing. It doesn't matter if the shot goes in or shot goes out. All that matters to me is that you're there, that you contest, that you make it harder than it should have been, that you push a guy just a little bit off his spot. So let's talk about that defensive element of it, right? Because it's the opposite end of the offense, right? If PJ Washington cutting into space is not a problem for me because I'm willing to dare him to shoot because I don't think that PJ Washington taking 35 shots a game is going to kill me, then how does an NBA team orient their defense and how does that impact the types of players you can put on the court offensively? Defensively, I look at it from this perspective. Let's say I'm a coach and I'm scheming up against the Dallas Mavericks, the team that just went to the NBA Finals. They have two of the best 25 players in the league right now. And I'm being generous when I say that, in Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. If Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving get a shot off on one of their spots, and because they're very dynamic players, that means they have many spots. Kyrie is very dangerous in the paint. He's very dangerous in the floater range. He's very dangerous in the mid range, and he's very dangerous from three. That means he's dangerous everywhere, which means he's hard to guard. Okay. He's an extremely good ball handler. He's a very good passer. It's the same thing with Luka. It's the same thing, right? Not quite the 3-point shooter, but he's even more of a threat near the paint. He's more a threat from the post. So Luka can put you into a lot of spirals defensively if you don't know what you're doing. So the way I would look at it if I'm a coach is move them away from their spots if we can. If they get to their spots, get the ball out of their hands with a contest. Bring a second defender over to shade some help. Recover properly, communicate on the rotations. You can already understand why having two of these players to guard is going to put your defense into a constant stress situation. But here's what I'm willing to live with. I'm willing to live with Derrick Jones Jr. last year and PJ Washington doing anything they want with the basketball court other than an open layup. Anything but an open layup for those guys. So if it's a transition three, if it's a pull-up three, if it's coming off a screen, if it's a dribble handoff, I don't care. Do whatever you want. If it's a playmaking opportunity, if it's streaking to the basket, and as long as I have a defender back and I'm able to offer a contest at the rim, I will live with the percentages. Why? Because the way modern defenses have to be coached is that I am living on an equation. And I am living on an equation that I'm going to give you shots that are below league average offense. Shots like a PJ Washington pull-up mid-range shot. That is, you have bailed me out. Defensively, as a coach, I will salute. That shot can go in 15 times in a row. I will continue to tell my team to do the same thing that is generating that look over and over. Luka, mid-range shot, different equation, different percentages, different offense. Everything's different. I'll give you another thing that I would love to have happen. I would love for Kyrie and Luka to be in the corners. That would be great. As a defensive coach, I would love to force those guys towards the corners. Now, they're not stupid, so they won't end up there. But playmaking is harder from the corner of the court. And I know this as a basketball player that if I want my best decision makers almost always in the center of the court. Here's another thing I don't want happening if I'm a coach coaching against the Dallas Mavericks. I do not want Derek Lively to catch the basketball at all on the screen. Off the screen, when he's diving to the court, I don't want him catching the basketball because he's an extremely good play finisher. He shoots 76% at the rim, but he's also an extremely good short roll passer. So I do not want this to happen because most likely it's going to result in him drawing two defenders and then absolutely shredding my defense to bits when he finds the open shooter. Three-point shots are much more effective after a paint touch. The math on this is conclusive. So I'm looking at Derek Lively as the third most important player that I want to stop. Everybody else, I'll live with. Josh Green, take whatever you want. Derrick Jones Jr., other than open dunk and transition play, I don't care what you do. Pull up all you want. So what this means is for the Dallas Mavericks to succeed, you needed upgrades on guys like PJ Washington and Derrick Jones, and you needed guys who are far harder to scheme against. Guys like Derek Lively, for instance, who will potentially very soon be adding a three-point shot to his game as well, which means good luck. That's a big three. If he does that and he grows a little bit, that's a big three out there in Dallas. So, from the Toronto Raptors perspective, you got to consider the same thing. What is my goal if I'm guarding the Toronto Raptors? Well, let's use the same philosophy here, right? Am I willing to live with Scotty Barnes taking threes all game? Yes. No disrespect to Scotty. He's evolved a lot as a shooter, but if Scotty Barnes taking the 3-point shot is the end result of my defensive effort, I will live with that. As long as it's not open and I'm offering a light contest on it, especially if it's off movement. If I can force him to put a couple dribbles down on the court and then pull up, I'll live with that 100 times out of 100. I'll tell you what else I'm willing to live with. I'm willing to live with RJ Barrett shooting threes. Just in general. I don't trust the percentages. I'm willing to live with him putting him at the line because I don't necessarily think he's the greatest free throw shooter. I'm willing to live with Jakob Poeltl catching the basketball outside of 20 feet. I'm not willing to live with Jakob Poeltl catching the basketball inside of 10 feet. So I will deny that pass as much as possible. I will deter him from those positions as much as possible. It is players like Grady Dick and Emmanuel Quickley that, when combined with a playmaker like a Scotty Barnes, create a lot of stress for me personally. Okay. And that is because they are not so easy to stop. And Emmanuel Quickley is so much harder to stop in theory than an RJ Barrett. Even if an RJ Barrett has a more efficient season, even if he shoots 60% shooting or whatever, it's because of that. How hard is it to stop, right? Like with RJ Barrett, it's going one way. It's going to the rim or it's an open shot. There's not a lot of playmaking, although I was very encouraged by some of his playmaking, but it's not so dynamic. It's way better than PJ Washington, in my opinion. If you want my honest opinion, RJ Barrett is a better player than PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. But it's a lot of the same stuff, which is to say that he's not a lights out shooter where I have to run him off the line. If I do run him off the line, he's actually shown a propensity to get to the paint. So I'm actually not going to run him off the line. I'm going to live with him shooting a three with a light hand in his face. Well, that means when he doesn't have the basketball, is he a great screen setter? He's solid. I have to look more into his screen setting. But in order for RJ Barrett to contribute better, he needs to become a better cutter and a better screen setter and a much better defender and a much better shooter. These will be the elements because with the basketball in his hands, he's already shown an ability to really dominate possessions and hold his own. Like, he's almost league average at that. And that is an upside thing. But if you're not building your offense around RJ Barrett, it does come to, you do begin to start asking yourself, well, what's your role off the ball? Are you a screener? Are you an offensive rebounder? Are you a cutter? Are you a guy who's going to come off a couple screens and take a movement shot, like from three, like Gradey? And so it also brings you to a Gary Trent Jr., which is also another guy who's a little bit easy to stop. He's not not the most efficient, not a great paint finisher, not a good passer. And so even when guys overreact to Gary Trent having a 25 or 30-point game, the league has told you what they feel about Gary Trent Jr. And that kind of leads me into my conversation about Gary. And then we will talk about what I saw with Ulrich Chomche towards the latter half of this show, because I saw a lot of good things from Ulrich Chomche. Gary Trent Jr. signing for a minimum contract with the Milwaukee Bucks. It's a good deal for the Milwaukee Bucks, man. I mean, the Raptors are willing to park $15 million a year for 3 years into a guy that just got the minimum. If that doesn't tell you what the Raptors have been doing wrong, I don't think what will. The only person that comes out of this looking worse than the Raptors, in my opinion, is Clutch and Gary Trent Jr., who were initially trying to get $25 million. Playing off of Giannis and Dame under Doc Rivers is not about to be the contract year that you think it's going to be Gary Trent. And I don't think that necessarily that was the greatest idea for him. It's not a big market. I don't know if they've promised him a starting spot. This could be one of those Kelly Oubre, Derrick Jones Jr. type of situations last year. But I'm not really sure about the minimum contract because there's a lot of taboos about signing a minimum and then it kind of hampering your overall value as a player for a very long time. But if nothing else, this puts into context just how much the Raptors paid last year for a guy. He was paid about $20 million last year. And the league just responded by handing him a minimum contract. Now, I think the bigger point here is this is what's happening to the middle class in the NBA. Teams are so afraid of that second apron and the fact that the mid-level exception can now be traded, which God knows, I don't know why in the world. I don't know why in the world that was put into the CBA, why the players agreed to it, but you just absolutely fucked over the Chris Bouchers of the world. I will guarantee you, unless something dramatically changes, Chris Boucher is going to get a minimum contract next year. Bet money. That's the new NBA. That mid-level can now be traded, which means there's an opportunity cost. When you actually had it before and you just lost it, you couldn't trade it, totally different. Then you tended to use it. It was there, it was a tool for you to get better. But now there's so many bad contracts. I think for the next 2 years, while we're just recycling some of these bad contracts, we just see teams hold on to this and say, like a trade exception, use it or lose it. But you don't want to be in a position where a guy who makes $8 million becomes available and you're capped out and you don't have your mid-level exception to trade, because that's one way that the Raptors can just outright absorb salary without sending a player back and to help one of these teams out. So it is an opportunity cost. The sad thing for the Raptors is a lot of teams have their mid-level. So it's maybe just one of those market economics things where if everyone else has it and you have it, it's not necessarily as important. It's like carrying a gun, I guess. I don't know. That was a stupid comment. Okay. Let's talk about Ulrich Chomche. Wait, before I can I do a victory lap for being the first person really in Raptors coverage to point out all the holes in Gary's game 2 years ago and catching a lot of shit for it? When I said that I didn't think that he's worth all that money, when I said he wasn't a good defender and I got roasted, I went on Raptors Digest and said he wasn't a good defender. I thought he was the worst defender in the starting lineup. People lost their minds. Go back and look at that starting lineup. Scotty Barnes, Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam. You tell me, OG Anunoby, who was the worst player, who was the worst defender in that starting lineup? It's wild to me how people just get to walk away from their takes. How are we all so willing to accept right now that Gary Trent Jr. is a non-defender? That's what I hear everyone saying. Like, he's a bad defender. He's a bad defender. First of all, he's always been a bad defender. He's always been a limited defender. Just because Nick Nurse's scheme allowed him to get a few steals, everyone lost their minds. So I just want to say good luck to Gary. This is not me dancing on his grave or anything like that. I'm very, very hopeful that he will bounce back. I liked him. I liked him as a person. I did not like him as a player very much at all. And it was sad that the Raptors could not extract more value, but I think it was obvious last trade deadline when they tried to trade him and they could barely muster an offer for multiple seconds that he was going to have this type of market. So Oak Tree saying, on the poll you had on X, I was one of the only saying he was worth only 8 million per. Well, it turns out we were both wrong, because I also would vote for $8 million and I thought that that was high. I didn't think he would get the minimum. I thought at some point he would find a way to avoid that outcome and probably sign for either minimum with the Lakers, because they do need him. If they could promise him a role, if they could promise him regular rotation minutes, I mean, the number of eyeballs that are going to be on the Lakers, it might have helped his brand the same way it helped Dennis. Maybe it will help to be on the Bucks. The Bucks have a legitimate shot in the East, right? Apart from the Knicks, the Celtics, and probably the Sixers, they are the fourth up. They didn't have a great year last year, and so maybe you can be the Bruce Brown in a sense, like that missing ingredient, the big off-season addition, and you can get a lot of credit for things that you have nothing to do with. Who knows? Abu saying, is he making less than Bronny now? No, he is not making less than Bronny. SP, Rob, you make a side secondary channel with all the receipts. Should I? It should be, you know, it'd be called petty basketball, where I just go up and down and just talk about, hey, y'all remember when I said Alex Sarr was a bust? Here's 0 for 15. Y'all remember when I said Reed Shepard's going to be really great? Here's the receipts, blah, 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 blah. But that's just petty. That's just petty. And, you know, we'll talk about pettiness and getting better at doing this as the final topic. Let's talk about Ulrich Chomche. We've been talking about it. I got Ulrich Superfan. Ulrich Chomche, bro. If you have even the most basic understanding of scouting, what you are seeing from this guy is exciting. If you don't understand basketball, what you're seeing from him is nothing, and you're probably you just give up, man. Watch baseball or something. The passes. He had 3 assists, okay? And they were good assists. And there was that one for Jevon Freeman-Liberty. It's clean, it's on time, it's on target, and he's taking the shots. He's taking the shots to make them. Defensively, he gets back. He has an extremely high motor. He cares a lot. Summer league is nothing to a lot of guys. They won't say that, but it's true. They're in Vegas, they're having a good time, they're drinking mimosas, they're having cereal in the morning, they're not taking this shit seriously. And he is. He doesn't know better. To him, this is life or death. The fact that he had to tie his shoelace while the defender was coming at him pissed him off so much. I really like him. I really like him, man. I'm gonna tell you right now, he's become my favorite rookie in our draft, just because of what it could become, right? I think Jamal Shead was fantastic. The dog and that guy, right? He was awesome, right? But what I'm seeing from Ulrich Chomche as a screener, as a transition threat, as a lob target, as a live body, just as an athlete. Fine. Sometimes he gets scored on, sometimes he fouls. That's technique. He's there. He's there on everything. He's there. He responds, he reacts, he cares. He's running. He might not get the ball. Sometimes he misses the ball. Sometimes he takes his eye off the basketball. And I think we saw that last game too, where he took his eye off the basketball from a Jamal Shead pass and he was like, it's such small stuff, man. But it just begins to add up with players like this. It really does. Andrew saying I yelled when he hit that 3 last game. Yeah, man, I'm excited for the kid. He works hard. Like he works really hard. Even on the basketball court, he's working really hard and you can tell. And I just think fluidity, motor, absorption, okay? Here's the thing. I said it on Twitter. I didn't think too much of it, but then it sort of caught a wave that there's a type of player in Darko's system that just you have to be a playmaker. If you're going to play for Darko Rakovic, you have to pass. So Precious Achua, see ya. Malachi Flynn, see ya. Just these are Jalen McDaniels, see ya. Gary Trent Jr., see ya. Basically, every single player that I've had an issue with over the years as a low IQ player, apart from Chris Boucher so far, is gone. And they have been replaced by maybe not the highest IQ players. You don't have LeBron and Jokic on this team, but higher IQ basketball players. And the only exception that I could have thought about when I was thinking about this roster was, well, how does Ulrich Chomche fit into this? Because he's extremely raw. He is going to play off instinct. And it just occurred to me when they passed on Yves Missi for Jacoby Walter, because Yves is a notoriously poor passer. As much as I am very, very high on his defensive upside, he definitely struggles with obvious passes, and it's so clear he doesn't have that court vision, right? I remain very high on him as a defensive prospect, as a rim runner, as a paint finisher at some point, but his passing is just non-existent at this point, and I really hope for Yves' sake that he picks it up. But this mattered, and I was thinking about Ulrich Chomche, and I'm like, he's doing stuff as a passer that is very impressive. It's not just that he's trying to make the passes. It's his angle at which he's making the passes. It's the accuracy with which he's making the passes, and it's the processing speed in which he's making the passes. We talked about this. I think it was either the first game or the second game where he catches the basketball down in transition, sees Gradey, and just flicks it up. It was a turnover. It's not a converted pass, but that is the type of pass that fifth-year centers who've been playing basketball their whole lives don't make because they're scared. They are scared. For whatever reason, they are scared. They're scared to commit a turnover. And look, man, I think that high turnovers are a great thing for young basketball players. It shows me, it depends on the type of turnovers. Dribbling into traffic because you don't see the pass or you don't see the help and just forcing up stupid shots and getting blocked, bad turnover. Okay. But seeing something out of the corner of your eye developing and just kind of slowly misreading it, making that pass, it gets tipped out of bounds. That's not a bad turnover for me. I like a lot of players that had high turnovers as kids. Watch LeBron James in grade 10. There were a lot of turnovers. Okay. I remember watching a lot of players, DeMar DeRozan, in grade 11, Compton, right? Grade 11 and grade 12, Compton, like he was pretty turnover prone at times as well. So you take a look at players and you say turnovers means you're trying and you're seeing. It just means that you haven't developed the muscle memory, the technique, the IQ, the coaching, all that stuff. That's going to cut down your turnovers. The other thing that is very, very hard to scale up, but very easy to scale back is motor. Okay. You saw it in the first two games where Ulrich Chomche was a little bit jumpy, right? So now if you're Jamal Malalela, you say, hey, Ulrich, you're at 20. I need you to dial it down to 12 this game. Can you dial it down to 12? That's much easier than asking a guy who's at 5 to dial it up to 7 or 8 or 9 or 10. We need to get you to stop jumping on fakes, right? We need you to maybe think about where you're running in the court, right? Sometimes Ulrich Chomche is so eager to get right down the court that he doesn't even realize that it's actually to his benefit to slow down in transition sometimes, right? There's a reason you don't streak all the way up the court. You might be taking an angle away from somebody, but you know how easy it is to ask him to slow down? Now ask a slow-footed plotting center to speed up and be as fast as Ulrich Chomche. You can't because it's physically impossible, right? Now, he jumps at a lot of pump fakes. He sprints down the court every single time. He sprints. Again, he doesn't understand the game of basketball right now. Do y'all understand that? He does not know how to play basketball. This is a guy who's playing completely on raw instincts. I promise you. I'm watching this kid play, and there are things that and this is not shade on Ulrich Chomche. Please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm telling you straight up, everything right now is instinct. His recovery is instinct, his run is instinct, his screens are instinct, and you can see, like I slow it down with him while I'm watching live, right? So I'll DVR back forth, and I hone in on him heavy every 3 games. All 3 games, I promise you 50% of my attention is on him. 50% is spread around the rest of the roster because he is the one of consequence for me, right? He is the one. If it works, holy shit, it worked. When I'm watching him without the basketball, he's active. He's engaged. He's moving, man. His feet are ready for the next thing, right? He wants to set a screen. He don't know how to yet. But all you got to do if you're Jamal Malalela and Darko Rajalkovic is get this guy into a film room and say, hey, Ulrich, this situation where you ran down the court super fast and you stood there? I'm going to need you to set a screen out of that. Or, this screen that you set? I'm going to need you to not do that this time because this is why. And then he, like a smart dude that he is going to be like, yes, boss, because this guy pays attention. I really like him because he's smart. I like smart basketball players. He may not understand the game of basketball. He may not be able to tell you about league history. He may not be able to tell you what that out of bounds play you drew up is called. He may not be able to tell you where basketball is invented. He may not be able to tell you the difference between one type of screen and another. He is not that right now. Okay. I mean, he's not. But this guy's raw instincts for basketball, incredible. Like, just dazzling, I guess. We'll just pull up the post game. Hang on one sec, guys. Yes, I will pull up the post game here. It's 31 minutes. Ulrich Chomche is smiling, and that is good. Hang on one sec. That was an ad, not a preloaded playlist. Let's be honest. I get very happy when I talk about good basketball players, right? Like, y'all never see me get that excited talking about Jalen McDaniels, Precious Achua. You ever see me get really juiced up talking about Precious Achua? No. I understand talent. I get it. I see it. All right, let's get to the post game. SB saying we should build the 905 around him. Hand him the keys to Mississauga right now. Raptors championship incoming. Bro, okay, here's the thing. I like players who care. I like players who learn. I like players who develop, who think, who move hitchlessly, and have athletic tools. You want my honest hot take? Hot take. Let me just say this before Jama gets on his positive glow. Honest hot take. He's going to be better than like 5 lottery picks in like 5 years. 5 years. Give it 5 years. Like, give him some time to learn the game. There's like 5 lottery picks at minimum, that he is going to be a better player than. I have like every game I go from like, I'm like 75% sure, but let's wait another game. I'm like 85% sure, let's wait another game. I'm like right now 100% sure that Ulrich Chomche is an NBA player. And that's crazy because he was a 57th pick, and you're not supposed to find 57th pick NBA player. And you know, it's funny because last year we had Trace Jackson Davis as the 57th pick. So this is back-to-back years. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Sasha Vezenkov was also a 57th pick. That 57 is lucky. I want to trade for the 57th pick every year. That's my go-to. Money for the 57th pick. Whoever has the 57th pick, I will give you my firstborn for the 57th pick. Just please give me, okay, no, not the firstborn. Okay, I'm going crazy now. Okay, let's go.
Mogbo and Gradey Dick not playing today. What were some of the adjustments you had to make for them offensively?
Yeah, I think one with Gradey not being able to play today, it really gave Jacoby a chance to be more in that ball handling position and handle the ball more. So that was good for him to see him sort of be in that situation. Obviously, he got more threes up. He's got to work on making those threes, but really good for Jacoby. And then I think with Jonathan, it gave Dylan a chance. I thought Dylan played good minutes for us today. You saw his ability to shoot the three and continue working on his defense.
Did you like the looks overall, or was Utah doing something that kind of thwarted what you were trying to do offensively?
Yeah, so I thought Utah did a great job. They're switching 1 through 5, and I think for us it was a good learning game to figure out what does that look like. How do we sort of play offense versus that switching 1 through 5, finding the cutting, finding the next actions. That's where we weren't great today, but that's obviously we watch the film and get better at it next game.
Jevon Freeman-Liberty stepped up again offensively. Same thing as last time when those guys went down. We know he can score, but what are some of the progressions that you're seeing from him?
Yeah, I think for Jevon, it's obviously as a proven scorer, it's what does he do with more size, and Utah brought that to the table with bigger players as he got to the paint. So it's him learning, can he make the finish or make the kick out? And it's just that decision. It's a very subtle decision of when he can pass, when he can finish, and that he got some good chances of that today.
What are you seeing from Chomche? I thought probably his best game.
Yeah, really impressed. I think Ulrich is someone who plays super hard every possession. That's really great to see. And today you saw him running to the rim, setting screens. We've kind of been trying to refine his pick and roll coverage a little bit. So he's working on that. He's such an active learner, always trying to do the right thing every possession.
For guys like that are so raw, are you able to see progressions from one game to the next that are pretty significant? And what are those for him? Like, what would you like to see from him next time?
Yeah, I think Ulrich, the answer first is yes. I think players do grow, and they figure out what's next and what sort of area they need to grow in. And as a coaching staff, it's our job to show them the film and be like, here's one specific area you need to improve in. And so I think for Ulrich, it's sort of the big one was his pick and roll coverage, where he was super aggressive, which is such a great trait to have, but almost too much so, where he's putting 2 on the basketball and just being down 1 or 2 steps.
It's my first game here, but what I'm noticing from this bench is that they're all behind each other. Is there something different about this year's Summer League team that we're not seeing? It just seems like everybody's with each other.
Thanks for joining us, Randy. I'm glad you're here, but I think that it's important that the team really, it's a team.
Yeah.
And I think we've had a short window to get together, but we're working on being together. The guys really like each other. The guys enjoy playing for each other, and they want to cheer each other on. On any good team, you know that's the case. And we've seen that on the bench. You see our energy, and even after a loss, they're picking each other up, supporting each other, wanting each one to be successful. I think basketball is interesting because as individual players get better, the team looks better, and as the team looks better, that goes back to the individual. So everyone can grow in this opportunity.
And so it has nothing to do with your positivity?
No, nothing at all.
All right, Coach. So you mentioned Utah was switching 1 through 5. They had a lot of size and athleticism out there. It creates a lot of difficulties for your guards to have to create more. With Jamal in particular, do you want to see a little bit more from Jamal offensively or anything different offensively?
I think firstly with Jamal, can he play faster? That's sort of the first area that we want to improve with him. Can he attack with the ball with more pace and more force before the defense is set, before they can get into their switching package? And then secondarily, can he be more of a cutter? I think he really relies on his pick and roll offense where he's handling the ball. But again, if he's off the ball or if we're in sort of any of our split action, what does his cutting look like and doing that with more force?
Okay, Jacoby, seems like obviously in this game he couldn't really get the shots to drop, but he seems to have a really good knack for drawing fouls. Where do you think that comes from?
Yeah, I think he's a basketball player. He's a pure kind of scorer. He knows how to manipulate the offense and get to the spots he needs to get to. I agree, his shot wasn't great today, but that's immaterial for us. Is he's getting the right shots, that's what matters. And I thought Jacoby was taking some good shots. So they'll fall over time. But learning how to sort of work with the referees a bit in terms of some of the shot fake stuff and getting his body wedged in where they're forced to call fouls was really good.
DJ, just how did the game plan change offensively for you with Gradey not in the game?
Yeah, I mean, Gradey's a big part of our offense, just bringing scoring, bringing energy on that side of the ball. So, as you can see in that first half, we got a little stagnant and kind of got loose with the ball there and kind of lightheaded. We didn't really know what to do with it. So we just got to be more assertive on offense and know that when we lose a guy like that, some guys are going to have to step up and play different roles and be that aggressor. And because our team needs that. Our team needs a guy like Gradey, a guy getting downhill, doing other things around the ball, off the ball, and stuff like that. So you could definitely tell that we missed him today, but we need other guys, step up and perform in that moment.
It was a promising start. You guys looked really good early on that first quarter. What sort of began to unravel there late first?
Yeah, I think really it was just being composed. I think, getting back to what coach was trying to get us to run, just getting under our sets and slowing down and getting in offense. I think, a lot of these guys, some of them haven't played, yet. And it's really just getting comfortable playing with each other. You could tell that, we hadn't really played with each other and we were kind of just looking confused out there and not on the same page and stuff. So it's really just, having that open communication with each other and being on the same page. And then going from there, just everybody has to have an aggressive mindset and, have to have the will to win. So.
And for you personally, your game, where have you seen the biggest progressions here from game one of Summer League to game three?
For me, I'm just trying to bring the energy on the defensive end. I'm trying to set the tone and just bring ball pressure. I think that's one emphasis that the team has really put on for us this summer league is just ball pressure, especially for me. And so I'm just trying to set the tone with that, and then get other guys involved, get downhill and make plays. I think I need to be a little cleaner on that side of the ball, but I feel like just as long as I keep bringing on the defensive end, it's going to carry over into the offense and hopefully give my guys some energy and me myself.
DJ, how was last season for you? I know you signed with the Raps and then you got injured. First off, I don't even know how you got injured, but how was last season's experience for you?
It was great. It was great just being with the team, the Raps, just learning, the offense, getting closer with the team and all that. That helped me, feel more comfortable in this atmosphere being with the team in Summer League. So the injury, it was a big injury. It's one of the biggest I've had in my career, so it definitely was a setback. But as of now, I feel healthy. I feel great right now. It's more so just, getting back into live play. I haven't played a game since February. So it's really just, getting comfortable, finding my game back within that on the offensive side. But other than that, just trying to take care of my body every day, do all the little things and, make sure I'm, maintaining up and taking care of myself.
What was the mental side of that? Like you mentioned, it's one of the biggest injuries you've ever had. Like, how was it in terms of just like staying focused, staying ready like you are right now?
Yeah, I mean, it was very hard to luckily I was able to, be with the Raptors and, be with their training program, and they helped me, get back on my feet and stuff and get back to 100%. So that I was blessed to be in that position. But it was very hard setback for me mentally and physically, something I hadn't been through before. So it was a learning experience for me. I took a lot from it. It helped me, on and off the court, and helped me, learn to just control the things I can control and get back to, playing the game I love. So.
And then in terms of, the rest of Summer League going forward into training camp as well, what are some of the conversations that you've had with coaches in terms of what they want to see from you and sort of how you sort of get more minutes and, find a more permanent spot?
What they want to see from me is just really defense. Bring that they need that dog on defense just to, pick up, like I said, bring that ball pressure, but also just bring kind of an excitement and energy and athleticism to the game that not a lot of people do. And whether that's getting downhill, hitting the corner man, playmaking, just running in transition. I need to bring energy on both sides of the floor and use, my God-given talent of athleticism and stuff like that, and use that and bring that to the table. So that's really what they really want to see out of me, just being confident, playing free, and, not thinking and keeping a good attitude out there.
So I'm imagining, like, practices are just you and Jamal picking each other at full court?
No, it's definitely a battle, yeah. Me and Jamal definitely go at each other. I mean, I'll have scratches. I'll be bleeding in practice, right, a day before a game just because me and Maul are going at each other. But we're pushing each other, and it makes each other better. And me and him have gotten really close off the court and stuff, so it's been cool to, just connect with a guy like that, a high-class, player. and stuff. But we have similar games in different ways. But it's fun just kind of attacking and being on the same court as him, and kind of having that identity as defenders.
Gotcha. Thank you.
No, of course.
Heck of a block late there.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I wish I could get more. I mean, I saw him. I thought maybe he'd toss a lob, but then I saw him fully commit on the rim, and I was like, I don't think he knows how much spring I got, but yeah, I mean, I feel like my body's getting there. I'm trying to maintain it and stuff like that, and it's not 100. I don't feel as athletic as I should be, but I definitely feel good out there. Feel like I'm getting there and making progress, and I'm excited for what's coming.
How do you feel like it went for you today?
There's still more room to improvement. I think I just have to stay aggressive, play hard, and be hungry, and the best is still to come. So this game was a learning game. I'm going to have great people around me, the staff, so we're going to go back, going to watch film, and that from there, I'm going to try to overcome from that and learn from this game. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, walk us through your journey so far in terms of when you started playing basketball to this point right now where you're drafted in with the Raptors. So,
Tell us about your whole life. Okay.
Say it again.
can you walk us through like the places you played before coming to Raptors?
Oh, like I always say, I'm from a small village in Cameroon.
Okay.
From the west part, my village is called Bafang. I'm a farmer, so I come from a place where everybody are farmer, and that's where everything started. So from there, I went to NBA Academy. That's where I learned how to play basketball the right way. Basically, that's where everything started because I went there. I was doing. That's even where I started learning how to speak English. Because when I get there, my skill in English was zero. I couldn't even stand here. Back there, before you put this in front of me speaking to me in English, I will not know what I'm going to say. So that's where everything started for me. They changed everything for me. That's why I'm always grateful for what the academy did for me. And after that, I'm here today, and with a good organization. They take care of me like I was their son, because everybody in the organization take care of me like I was their own son. So I have a lot of parents. So I'm grateful to be there, and I hope the future is going to be bright.
Can I ask you, what were you farming? You were actually a farmer?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. What did you grow?
Beans, banana, coffee, cacao, corns, potato, sweet potato, a lot of stuff, a lot, yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So when did the Raptors come into the picture? You mentioned you have a lot of support here. When did you first get to know people from the Raptors?
Sorry?
When did you first get to know people from the Raptors?
I don't understand that question. When?
When did you first meet the Raptors?
When did I face?
From the Raptors.
Or people from the Raptors?
Yeah.
First of all, the president of the team is how can I say that? I'm a rich fan because I always look up for him, not just for who he was, not just for who he is, because what he did for Africa. He done a lot for Africa, and I look up for him every time because I want to do the same. I want him to help me to put Africa on the map because he did a lot from our continent. Even that young man over there, I don't know if I have to say young man, but Mr. Pat, I think he's the first one that I always, from the after that, everywhere I was playing, I was always see him somewhere sitting. I was like, who's this man who's always there when I'm playing? So yeah, I think he's Mr. Pat and the president of the team. And who else? Some people too, even Josh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Describe what this summer league experience has been like for you. Has it everything you thought it was going to be, or anything surprise you?
I think this is a big thing for me to showcase my talent and represent my continent and try to learn from this, because we will have a lot of games. So I'm not going to bias myself to what I did today. So there's a lot of more games to come. And so far I've done some basic stuff to help my team, and because I help them to help me, because at the end of the day, they want me to be better. So I think this summer league is the best thing for me to show them what I can do now. They're going to see who am I. They're going to try to polish my game, and if they see that there's some stuff that they have to add on my game, they're going to do it. So based on this, they're going to see who I am, so they're going to develop me, and that's what I'm grateful for.
Can we take a moment to just appreciate that kid's 18 years old. He's 18 years old. Watching him play and watching him handle these situations, the overall intelligence of a man is so high. His attentiveness. Look, man, there are so many people. Look, I don't know how to. I'm a little bit flabbergasted. Okay, there are so many people who take a situation and they transform the situation into something so much better than what it could have been. Right? Take for instance an opportunity like Summer League. Take for instance an opportunity like a media, scrum or whatever. These situations are all opportunities. They're opportunities to work on something, grow, learn something, right? A coaching meeting, a scouting film session, all of these things, absolutely all of these things come down to your mind. I firmly believe that basketball intelligence and life intelligence, emotional maturity, these things are so fundamentally important because I've seen so many talented players fail when they get to the NBA. I've seen them get distracted. I've seen them not take their diet seriously. I've seen them not learn. I've seen them close their ears. They don't want to hear what the vets have to say. They don't want to hear what their coaches have to say. And all of these people are literally put into position to help you. But that doesn't work if your mindset is defensive. If your mindset at a young age, and really, by the way, it comes down to early habits, early neurology, and the neuroscience of your mind. Okay, I'll ask you a question just to jump into this a little bit, and we'll get to super chats and comments and your questions and your suggestions. And thank you so much, Sean, for spamming the super chats. I appreciate you, and hilarious what you're saying. Okay. When you're young, you potentially learn what a mistake is. It's something to fear or it's something to grow from, right? Now, if you had batshit crazy parents, like some of us did, not judging, just saying, then you probably learned something. A mistake is something to run away from. Maybe it's something to avoid. You don't want to make mistakes because you get in trouble every single time you make a mistake. But some people, they learned that a mistake was something you can grow from. A mistake is something that you own up to. A mistake is something that's inevitable. And then you have what I consider a positive mindset for growth, right? You want to fail and you want to seek feedback, right? When I work for somebody, whether I'm writing for somebody, whether, I'm publishing articles, if I'm on Player's Choice, whatever, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask them after about 2-3 weeks, how am I doing? Not to hear good things. I'm actually going to push for the bad things. What am I doing wrong? What do you want me to do differently? What do I need to get better at? How do you feel about this, right? Because, and this is something that I didn't do very much when I was 14 or 15 years old, because I didn't have a positive mindset for growth when I was 14 or 15. I was trying to run away from mistakes. I viewed all the mistakes because the truth is that some of us, when we're growing up, we learn that mistakes are things that make us less likable. You know what I mean? And when we're starving to be liked, when we're starving for attention, when we're starving for our teachers and our parents to approve us, far too often we end up thinking that the best way for that to happen is for us to be blemishless. That the more mistakes we make, the more times we forget things, the more times we confess to not being good at things, the more things we try that we could look bad at, right? A child with self-esteem is one who is comfortable trying to be good at things that they're objectively bad at. You want to know if a child has positive self-esteem, ask them to do something that they've never done before and see their reaction. There's openness to experience. You know what I mean? I've never I've never freestyle battled in my life. There's probably a reason for that because at some point when I was a kid, I thought to myself, okay, kid with the not so cool clothes, kid with the not so cool parents, kid with the not so cool bank balance, kid with the, acne. Maybe I don't need to tack on freestyle battles as something I want to be bad at, right? But if you have a healthy self-esteem, you'd be like, why not? Let's try it. What's the worst that could happen? Right? You become a chronic overachiever because you're trying to buy back something. I was captain of like multiple teams because I was like, maybe that'll make me more likable. Letting go of this stuff in my early 20s, more importantly, freed me up to pursue things that I was objectively bad at. Podcasting is something that I'm bad at. I was bad at this. I was really bad at this. Truth be told, I only started, I mean, I think I've shared this story before. I was horrible at recording myself while speaking. Objectively, I was terrible. I would look down. City TV stuck a friggin' camera in my face. Penn Nance year one interview was so bad, we had to wipe it. Couldn't even use it because I was so awkward. And I and I because I was terrible at it and I didn't want to do it. And then it was obvious. But because I freed myself up, now I'm comfortable being bad. I'm bad at things. Ulrich Chomche, I'm not trying to compare myself to Ulrich Chomche, please understand. I'm drawing a personal anecdote and a personal parallel to something that I understand in order to explain something that I maybe don't understand as well. Ulrich Chomche is not afraid to make mistakes. That is one of the most important things for a young player. He is also actively seeking feedback for things that he can do better, which is also important. He is smart, which means his pattern recognition is going to be very good. Now, when I watched him in December to the player I'm watching now, he's already 2 times better. That's 7 months. Where he's going to be in 7 months from now, I don't know. But if you tell me that he's going to be a top 5 to top 7 player in this draft, I'm very comfortable telling you you're not crazy. He has a chance. And he has a chance for more than what people are giving him credit for. People are going to say he has a chance because he's tall, because he runs fast. But who cares? There's a lot of guys who are tall and run fast. Precious Achiuwa is tall and runs fast. A lot of guys are tall and run fast. Musa Diabate is tall and runs fast. Darius Baisley, who is in his, 6th year in Summer League and just missed that dunk that we saw, and that's going to be all over Sportsnet. He's in his 6th year. He's tall and he can run fast, and he can run even faster than Ulrich Chomche, and he can jump higher than Ulrich Chomche. But it doesn't matter, because what determines your success and failure in life comes down to so many things that don't appear as obvious on the basketball court. Openness to experience, pattern recognition, calmness of your mind. Does your mind race when you make a mistake? Do you dwell on it? You know what I mean? And then it comes down to habits, your surroundings, how you receive, right? If you're wrong, like if you're just wired wrong for basketball, you're gonna view a scout or giving you feedback on your game as a bad thing. You're gonna view an assistant coach telling you when to wake up and how to fix your diet and your exercise as a bad thing. You're gonna view Masai Ujiri telling you that you need a diet plan or whatever, or getting a live-in chef or some sort of meal plan. You're gonna view that as an imposition. But Ulrich Chomche, at least from what I'm gathering, he's viewing everything as help. He just called the Raptors his parents. He said, I have a lot of parents. That was such a beautiful sentiment. He is so extremely likable. And he is likable for the same reason as the inverse of why so many people are unlikable. He's likable because he's open. He's likable because he's honest. He's likable because he is trying his best. And he's extremely young to be so mature. So I am really just rooting for this kid. Heavy. I'm really rooting for him. I think he's going to be great. I hope Christian Koloko comes back and we could just have it's so funny because I spend so much time hating on Joel Embiid, and yet I am a very big proponent of African basketball, and I'm pretty much hating on the second best African player ever. Ulrich Chomche is fantastic. Fantastic. As a prospect, I am so blown away. I'm so impressed. I firmly believe that if we held the draft tomorrow, he goes in the first round. Someone would reach for this potential after 20. After seeing this, Clutch hit him, the Raptors hit him, and congratulations, they finally got that Bruno Caboclo pick right. It took 10 years, and they finally got it right. And now guess what? You got Jama here, you got the 905 here. I'm telling you right now, my buddy Adam has 905 tickets. Last year, I was constantly dodging those invites. This year, I will be there. 905, if he's playing, I'm there. I want to see this. And this is going to be a really fun side story for the Toronto Raptors. Obviously, the main story is going to be what's happening with the team, what's happening with the draft pick, the 2025 draft, playoffs, play-in, blah, blah, blah. But this will be a very exciting side story for the Toronto Raptors, who have not had a ton of prospects in that G League pipeline for a very long time, since the days of Pascal Siakam I think the last guy who was very exciting, for me at least, in the 905 setting was probably Christian Koloko. But really, like, it's been few and far between because the Raptors have traded away so many draft picks. Well, this year they ended up getting 4 draft picks, and I'm very thrilled. Yeah, I'm very impressed with him. Okay, let's get to some comments here and some super chats, and then we'll get our asses out of here. First, Sean, if the Raptors don't hire Rob as a scout soon, we riot. I appreciate that. I'm not looking for a scouting job, but that is very interesting. Thank you so much. Bulgrim, what do you think about this crop of players in the summer league compared to others? The reason I ask is because they were saying it was a weak draft, but I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. Well, it was considered a weak draft because of the top. And so far from the top players, the only one who's really standing out is Reed Shepherd. And so I firmly understand the point, but it's a little bit misunderstood. Shed looks like a pro as well. Fully agree. He is going to be he's got some work to do, of course. The shot, the finishing package, some of the decision making needs to get faster. I like the Jama said he needs to get faster. He does. But I think some of it is very encouraging. I like the dog in him. I like the fact that he pursues the basketball. I like the fact that these are small things you notice. These are very small things you notice, okay? And again, don't come at me and say I'm over extrapolating from one event. But even that turnover that he had late when he faced some pressure and he turns the ball over very late, he had very positive body language around it. He turns over to Jama Balalela and he says, "My bad." And then Jama doesn't see him. And I think he went back and he made sure that Jama saw it and he said, "My bad." Like, he didn't blame anybody for it. He didn't pretend that he got fouled. He didn't do that thing that a lot of players do often when they make a mistake late in the game. And weirdly enough, that helps, because if you're a leader, I really care that you take ownership for the things you do wrong. And that can sometimes be a very big hindrance to some young players. His ego gets in the way. You start thinking, "No, that guy touched my hand." Nope, it was my bad. My bad. I like that from him. And I just like how he pursues the basketball. I like his length and his peskiness. And I like the fact that when he gets cross-matched on a big, I don't feel scared at all. I don't feel, because I know this guy's going to fight. And I know that he's going to get low in his stance and he's probably going to draw an offensive foul or something. And you know what? Good thing for Jamal Shead is refs are very sympathetic to small players. They always have been. And so if you get deep down, so let's say he gets cross-matched against Joel Embiid. Yeah, it's a mismatch. But I'm actually going to give him a pretty good chance in that matchup just to fight. Like, Joel Embiid is a superstar. Obviously, Joel Embiid is going to score in that situation. But I like my chances with a guard that small getting cross-matched on him, because he's at least going to try to bump him off his spot. He's going to try to fight. He's going to try to rip the ball. He's going to try to draw an offensive foul. He's going to fight, is what I'm saying. Jamal Shead, my big takeaway is he will fight. And I like that. I like that in my point guards. You sold me, Rob. My Chomche jersey will be here Monday. Yes, we will have a small section of Ulrich Chomche jerseys in every single Raptors game, and you will know that those people are Pensar basketball fans. Cool that he claims the Raptors were his favorite team. Yes, and why wouldn't he? Pascal Siakam played here. He follows Christian Koloko. Christian Koloko plays here. He's obviously very familiar with Pascal's game. So, cool. Jaden saying Joakim is his trainer. Dang, that's tough. All right. Funny enough, he has a lot of Joakim Noah in his game already. He has a little bit of Derek Lively as well. Fun fact, Derek Lively is one of my favorite rookies last year. I think he was like my third favorite rookie after Wemby and Bilal. So, Kason Wallace, Derek Lively, like, those are my favorite players. Joakim Noah is one of my favorite players of all time, though. And I think he's one of the most underrated players in NBA history. I love him. He's not his trainer. He is his mentor. And they know each other, very familiar with each other. Joakim is half Cameroonian, if I'm not mistaken. I think his mother was like a Swiss model. His father is Cameroonian. And he has been in Cameroon building courts. He's doing a lot of really good work in Cameroon. So kudos. And speaks to the point that I made in my Fred VanVleet live, where I talked about billionaires, millionaires, etc., and giving back to the community. You put millions and millions of dollars in the hands of someone like Joakim Noah, suddenly you're seeing positive infrastructure growth in Africa because he is a person with a very big heart. Andrew, better playmaker too. Darko will for sure help with that. Andrew saying, Jama speaks so fast yet so clear. Yes, Jama Malela is probably one of the best communicators. I was such a strong proponent for him coming back. I made a video prior to his hiring when the Raptors were looking for a head coach, advocating for him as a head coach for the Raptors. I realized after making it that that would not happen, that he wasn't necessarily best cut out for that. But he is a very, very positive infusion of energy to a team, then I think that's very good. Graham Kennedy with the super chat. I really appreciate it. I'm buying a Shed jersey. Okay, we got Shed jerseys and we got Ulrich Chomche jerseys. Cool. Walter's handles aren't NBA ready. I agree. JFL has great energy but needs to change speeds. He's too predictable. That's a good observation too. I like that. Yes, there were a couple times where a little bit of herky jerky might have helped, but he's also a little undersized, and the spacing was not good for the Toronto Raptors today. And so very often, even though he was 7 for 14 from the field, I think too often he could have made a pass, or you're right, he could have manipulated the defense a little bit more. Agbaji isn't the guy. We have something in Chomche. So I agree with everything. I hope Agbaji will turn it around. I really do. But there is a certain expiration on prospects. And to the point that I made about Bronny James not being a top 1,000 player, look, I don't say none. Most of these rookies are not top 500 players in the world. There's a lot of EuroLeague vets that are better than them. There are guys in the G League that are better than them. We saw this firsthand with Gradey last year when he went down to the G League and he was getting owned by guys who were a little bit older than him. It's sort of expected and not really talked about that most players under 22 aren't 400 and top 450 players in the world. Okay. And it just so happens that almost half the league is under 25 at any given time. And so it's a rotating door, right? Because next year there's going to be 65 to 70 other players coming in a very strong draft, ready to take your job. And then the year after that, add another 70, right? So that's 130-ish jobs that are going to be in flux. And if you are a guy at the end of your first contract that has not necessarily shown that you're an NBA player, like Ochai Agbaji, like Jalen McDaniels next year, right? You very, very well will probably end up in Turkey. And you probably will end up in Turkey. I guarantee you right now, if Jalen McDaniels does not turn around, he's out of the league next year. It's the same thing we said with Sam Decker, right? The Utah Watanabe. Like, again, the mark and the difference between making it or not making it, it's so slim. That gap is so slim. And really, the gap between being the 600th best player in the world and the 300th best player in the world is a very small gap. There's a much bigger gap between the best player in the world and the 50th best player in the world than there is between 300 and 800. 300 to 900 is just bunched together. It's semantics. It's, oh, he's a little old. Oh, there's guys who are 38, 39 that are probably in the top 300 right now, but they're not in the NBA because they're too old. The teams just see no point in bringing them over, right? They're EuroLeague vets or whatever, but they're better. They're objectively better. Sasha Vezenkov is easily one of the top 450 best players in the world. Of course he is. So there's but unfortunately for the Raptors, there's a lot of players on their team that are not one of the top 450 players in the world. And I think that is going to be very relevant for someone like Ochai Agbaji to realize that, hey, this opportunity doesn't last forever. And just because you were an ex-lottery pick, it might boost your chances of maybe catching on to a two-way deal somewhere down the line. You're still relatively young. Someone might say, oh, he was a lottery pick. He was a national champion. There's a lot of things going for Ochai, but you can't have stagnation for 3-4 years as an NBA player and expect to be, unless you were the best player in your draft or something. And, like a Ben Simmons, right? Like a Ben Simmons can stagnate a little bit because he came in so good. A Zion Williams can stagnate because they came in so good, right? Nerlens Noel, again, came in so good. They can stagnate, right? There's a lot of players who stagnate. But when you're barely in, you can't be this way. So Ochai Agbaji, wake up, man. You gotta do more. I'm making sure Rob gets paid more this hour than Will Liu did. That's funny. Thank you. You certainly made a huge contribution to that. We need some Quebecois journalists to ask him questions in French so we can really hear his depth. I think he's doing a pretty good job with English, man. But I agree that it would be probably a lot easier in French for him. All right. So, final note before we get out of here. We're going an hour and 34 minutes. We've talked about a lot of things. We've listened to the entire Raptors postgame. I noticed last live and a few lives prior to that I was saying a lot, and I was kissing my teeth a lot. And I was noticing that this fragmented way of speaking is something that's been there for a very long time. And it happens more often when I'm not well slept. But I decided to look into why people say and why people use fillers. And hopefully the viewing and listening experience today has been better. I'm obviously going to have to listen to this back and see if what I tried to do today worked. But one of the things I wanted to do was really understand why I was using filler words. To anyone in the chat, do you know why people use filler words? Any idea? You might be doing it. You might be doing it in your own life, and maybe you don't have a podcast, so you don't really care too much. But I can tell you with some authority that it is hurting you. It is probably hurting you if you're a young man or a young woman out there. It's probably hurting your dating chances. It's hurting perhaps your career advancement chances. Okay, because they aren't sure what to say. Yes and no. It's a little bit like that. So the reason that Joe Rogan, someone who's very good at podcasting, does not do this, and the reason that I do this very often as someone who's newer to podcasting, is because I didn't figure out that when we leave our mouths open in between a sentence, our mind subconsciously fills in that gap with a filler. Now, why do we use fillers? Typically, we use fillers because in a general conversation, we want to communicate to the person that we're speaking to that we still aren't done speaking. So it would look something like this. I just wanted to say that we don't want to get cut off between the two words. And so we fill it with so that the person doesn't cut us off. So we don't lose our place. Poor vocabulary, but not in your case. No, I don't think that it is poor vocabulary, honestly, Oak Tree. It just comes down to that. And so one of the things that I learned over the week or the last 2 days was that if you want to stop yourself from saying then simply close your lips in between sentences. It may result in slightly clunkier listening for some people while you're speaking, but over a period of time, you will break the habit of going right? And this is one of the hardest things for me. And I don't know why it is. But when I'm recording a video, I like a motherfucker. I don't know what it is. Lives are actually easier for me. It's the weirdest thing. Let's say, for instance, I tried to record this video and cut it up into a 20-minute a video for y'all to watch as a post game instead of doing it live. If I had recorded this, I would have probably 500 times in that video because for whatever reason, when I'm speaking, I a lot. When I'm speaking on camera, I a lot. But when I'm not speaking on camera, I'm very casual. And so this comes down to a general anxiety for me being recorded. And for me, the workaround was stop. Right? Second thing, being likable. I was on Player's Choice the other day, and for whatever reason, I didn't wake up in the right mood, and I got onto Player's Choice. I don't think I was very likable on Player's Choice. The last episode, even if I think I'm saying the right things or whatever, I don't think I was very likable. Came off kind of like a know-it-all, and I've noticed that I've been accused of being a bit of an asshole pretty much my whole life. This is one consistent. There's a lot of things in my life that have changed. But being unlikable is pretty much the one static. I promise you, since I was about 12 years old, I am a very highly unlikable person. And I don't know why. I always felt like, hey, man, if people get to know me, most people are not going to give you the opportunity. They're not going to get to know you, right? Most of my best friends would tell you right now they hated me when they first met me. And then over some period of time, they realized that I meant well and whatever. But my first impression is terrible. I come off somewhat conceited, somewhat arrogant. And truth be told, I'm not really that arrogant. I don't think that much of myself. I believe, a positive self-esteem, but it came down to really how I was speaking. And so I started to look into it, and I'm going to be better. I think I'm going to be better. So we'll see on Friday. I'll be on Player's Choice, and we'll see if the tactics work and the techniques work. I've never bothered to think too much about how I'm being judged and interpreted. I'm more or less in my own head, and I think that that sometimes can be a bit of a detriment, right? Let's be real. Rob saved Player's Choice. I don't think I saved Player's Choice at all. I think Player's Choice is awesome. It's a really cool community behind the scenes. It's a really cool community. Shout outs to them for having me on. I think I'm learning a lot in that situation. It is interesting though, right? When you don't speak enough, they accuse you of being boring. When you speak too much, they accuse you of whatever. And that's fine. Feedback is fine. You can't duck it. You can't be afraid of it. But I think sometimes it's good to listen to the feedback. And when people are saying you're being a little too long-winded, you're coming off like a know-it-all, you're coming off as very unlikable, it makes it hard for people to actually focus on what you're saying. See, I think the last episode I dropped a lot of positive knowledge. I think I was right about a lot of things that I said. I even believe that when I was talking about Pascal Siakam, way back when, to refresh that take, or what the Raptors should have done. I think that so many of the things that I said were good things. But when I listen to them, my thought process is, who is this asshole and why does he hate Pascal Siakam so much? And so I'm realizing more that as a person on the spectrum, I don't necessarily focus too much on how people say stuff. I don't focus on it, but I do register it. There's a reason why our entire chat was going like, "Oh, Uri's so sweet," because he's extremely likable. He has an extremely likable quality to him because he's humble. If Ulrich Chomche came out like all snarls and he wasn't smiling and he was looking the other way and he was yawning, you would think he was a douchebag, right? But instead, he's giving everyone the presents, he's smiling, he's happy. And so that stuff comes through. So I've realized over a period of time that I've been fighting for what I've been saying, and people have been fighting against how I've been saying it for a very long time. And I'd be very stupid to continue down this path and not adjust. That would be very dumb because at some point, yes, you want to be yourself, but you also want to be the best version of yourself. You want to make sure that the things you do well are not being overshadowed by the things you don't do so well, which is to say that if you have a great opportunity to get a job, right? And somebody suggests to you that maybe it might be advisable for you to wear a long sleeve shirt that hides some of your arm tattoos or whatever, because some people have some ideas about arm tattoos, then that's not the worst thing in the world. It will allow someone to just focus in. And I think a lot of us, especially those of us who grew up kind of hood rats, we try to more or less wear our flaws on our sleeve, if that makes sense. Like we're just like, nah, these are my neck tattoos and my face tattoos. Take it or leave it. It doesn't have to be that serious. And I think that ultimately, when you come from a place of understanding and empathy, everyone will be okay with what you have to say, even if what you have to say isn't what they already think, right? For me, I'm cheating this channel short. We're at 10,700 subscribers. We should have been, probably, in my opinion, based on basketball coverage, based on effort, based on quality videos, etc. If I was a more likable person, this channel would be at 20,000 subscribers. So every single day I have to reconcile with the fact that, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. I do believe that I have made a positive effort to be a good content creator. But at some point, there's like 80% of the people just don't like you. There's shit, man. There's probably people in this community who watch every show that don't like me very much. So I think that that's something to work on. And I think that it's something to acknowledge. It's something to get better at. And it's just something to, because you want people to be able to hear what you have to say. You have a great understanding of a particular play that a team is running or a particular draft pick or whatever. You don't want the way you're saying it to overshadow what you're saying. So yeah. I think you're killing it on here. You can tell Ox and Mars really appreciate your perspective. They've come around on you since the first time you were on. Yeah, and I think Ox has always been there, but yeah, I think overall it's a good community. It's a good vibe over there. Penny Hardaway saying all good stuff. You know your stuff. Keep going. Yes, I do. I do. I think I do. So, and I'm continuing to get better. I really want to get so much better as a content creator. So, yes, the best is yet to come. Please hit subscribe if you want to witness my journey through what could be a very interesting season overall for the Toronto Raptors. I'm just overall, I'll share with you on a positive note, just because I do understand that this is entertainment, right? In the end, I think some of us can take this very seriously. We can start competing. We can say, "Oh, I got more numbers than this guy. I got more subscribers than this guy. I got more likes, more super chats, etc." But in the end, it's entertainment. What we're doing here is sports entertainment. And so I would be remiss if I did not tell you once again that I am very, very excited about the Toronto Raptors going forward. I think they've picked a direction. If the Cam Johnson trade happens, great. If a trade for Lauri Markkanen happens, great. I will support it. The base is good. The base is good. The base of people you have are good. The locker room is good. The coaches are good. They're good people, right? This matters to me more than it matters to probably most people, but it matters precisely because I saw what happened when those things were not in check 2 years ago. So I think that the Toronto Raptors are in good hands. Emmanuel Quickley, Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett. It'll be a really fun season. Maybe it's a 35 win season. Maybe it's a 30 win season. Maybe it's a 22 win season. Maybe it's a 45 win season. It's going to be somewhere in that range. And so whether we're rooting for the upside or the downside, I just want to get to a point where losses and wins are enjoyable. You know, we were at a point 2 years ago where wins were not enjoyable. And whenever you're at a point in your life where your victories are fruitless, when your victories taste bitter, something's wrong. You must adjust. The Raptors adjusted. Kudos to them. We are going to witness that adjustment. Good for us. We are back. It feels good. Please hit subscribe. Please hit like. And please check out more videos on this channel. It really helps me out. And thank you so much to the 3 super chats, Graham Kennedy and Sean times 2. Thank you to all of you who have helped with the Amazon wishlist stuff. The studio is coming together slowly. I am back on my old computer because I got tired of trying to do lives on a computer which was not sucking Wi-Fi well. So yes, still on the market for a new computer. That is in the works. We're waiting. Someone told me wait for a month and then get the computers on the back to school sale. I dig that. That's a smart idea. I'll probably do that. So, and let me know in the comments if you found my narration, let's say narration, my tone, intonation, my speaking pattern. If you have any notes for that, or if you have any notes for this channel in general, let me know. Okay, I would be open to that. But if today felt a little smoother for you, if it was like too slow for you, if it's too fast, let me know. And maybe you're going to tell me, Rob, what you were doing 3 days ago was perfect and this is completely fucked up. I'm open to that too. But let me know how it went. All right. Okay. Any final comments? Final comments? Would you trade RJ for Cam? Cam Whitmore? Or Cam Johnson? Yes. No, I don't know. Okay, that's another thing to let me know in the chat. Would you trade RJ for Cam Johnson? I like RJ Barrett a lot, and Cam Johnson is much older than him and way more injury prone. So I think that should count for something. Bueno Kitty saying, maybe listen to your old interviews with Scotty and Doughton's trainers and see how light and positive vibes you are sending out. Yeah, but I love those guys. Like Brian and Brian, both Brians. It's easy to be light and breezy when you're talking to people that you're friends with and that you really like. It's completely different when you're talking to somebody that you don't like or you're talking about a loss. I'm trying to get to a point where I'm not insufferable if I haven't slept well the night before, if I'm not properly hydrated. One of those things that I realized was that I need to drink water so that my brain has enough oxygen to process the information as it's coming at me. I think too often I'm coming into these lives and I'm already in panic mode. If you go back and listen to the first 2 minutes of this live, it was horrible. So maybe I need a workaround where I can start talking and then go live 2 minutes after I start talking. You know what I mean? Because I'm almost going from not talking for 4 hours right into talking, and that has always been a clunky transition for me. So we figure it out as we go. Nice. All right, talk to y'all later. Peace.